I used my F or 4mm crochet hook, and you're going to need a pair of scissors and a tapestry needle. I used 2 buttons for my dress, and I picked a pink color to go with mine. So you would pick whatever color that you want for your buttons and the size of your buttons. For the buttons, this is where I'm going to sew my buttons on. So you can see how I can fit 2 buttons, nice sized buttons, onto mine. And what I like about these buttons is I could fit my tapestry needle. I also am using a smaller tapestry needle. I use my larger one with the larger eye to bury loose yarn ends, and then I have the smaller eye tapestry needle. It's slender but it has a large eye. It will fit right through the hole of the button, so I can use yarn to sew the buttons on and make them even stronger. So in order to do that, I use my DMC yarn threader as well. So I'm going to show you how to do that. If you want to sew your button on with yarn, you will need a smaller tapestry needle that will fit through your buttonhole, as well as your yarn threader. If you don't have that, you can just use a regular sewing needle and thread for your project. For the top part of the dress, you're going to start with the color that you want, and I'm using a light pink for mine. The first thing you're going to do is just make a loop. Fold the yarn over on itself to form a loop. Then just take your crochet hook, and I'm using my F or 4mm crochet hook. Put it right through the loop. Hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. Then you're just going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for a slip knot. Then you're going to make a chain of 45. I'm only going to make 4 of them with you so you can see how to do it. But you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for 1, 2, 3. You can see how it's making a chain. 4. Go ahead, finish making a chain of 45, and then come back. Then, after you have your chain of 45, then you're going to hold that last stitch with your middle finger and your thumb, and then you're going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to count as your first double crochet for the next row. We're going to make a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook, which is the stitch that you're holding. Go ahead and yarn over. Put the crochet hook into the 4th chain from the hook. Bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and go through 2. 2 loops remaining. Yarn over and go through 2. Then you're going to make 1 more double crochet into the same stitch. So you yarn over, go into the same stitch, bring up a loop. Do that again. Make your double crochet. And then we're going to repeat that pattern all the way across to the end. So you're going to make 1 double crochet into the first stitch, and then 2 double crochet into the second stitch. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way across to the end, and then come back. You should have finished 69 stitches for that round, and you could see how it forms a circle. And I just want to make sure that you know how to count the stitches. I'm just going to take my tapestry needle and just show you. So this 1 stitch on the end is the first chain 3 that we made. So the top stitch on that one is right here. And then you have your second stitch here, 3rd, 4th, and that's how you count your stitches. Now you're going to place your yarn markers so that you can mark the front, the 2 armholes, and then the back where the button is going to go. So starting from one of the sides on the back, you're going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then put your yarn marker through the 11th stitch. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So you're going to put a yarn marker through the 25th stitch. Then 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. Put a yarn marker into the 45th stitch. 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59. Then you're going to put one into the 59th stitch. Then you have the 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69 stitches. So that's where all of your yarn markers go. And then we will start on the next row. After your yarn markers are in place, go ahead and chain 3 and turn your work. Now you're not going to work into the base of that first chain 3 stitch that you made. You're going to work into the next stitch over. So you're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch over, and make a double crochet. And then you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch until you get to the first yarn marker. Leave that first stitch before the yarn marker unworked and then come back. This is how your work should look so far, and you have 1 stitch left before you reach your first yarn marker. You're going to make 2 double crochet into that next stitch. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker, and you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch all the way to the next yarn marker and then come back. When you reach your second yarn marker, you're going to make a double crochet into the same stitch as your yarn marker, and then you're going to make 2 double crochet into the next stitch. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch until you get to the next yarn marker and leave the first stitch before the next yarn marker unworked and then come back. So just for a recap, we've worked the back row, one of the armholes, and across the front, and now you're at the 3rd yarn marker and we have 1 stitch left before the yarn marker. You're going to make 2 double crochet into the same stitch. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into the yarn marker stitch. And you're going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch to the next yarn marker and then come back. So now I'm at the last yarn marker, and then we have the other side of the back panel. You're going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker, and then you're going to make 2 double crochet into the next stitch. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch after that to the end, and then come back. So now you should have 73 stitches for that row. Make sure you don't forget that last stitch on the end there. It's easy to miss that one. And before we get started on the next row, I'm going to have you move the yarn markers up so it's easy for you to follow. So you're going to go where your yarn marker is and move it directly up to the stitch above it. So this yarn marker on this row falls right after the previous row's 2 double crochet into the same stitch. And you're just going to go and move all of the yarn markers up to the stitch above, directly above it. This one falls right before the 2 double crochet in the same stitch on the previous row. Here, this yarn marker falls right after the 2 double crochet on the previous row. And your last yarn marker, move that one up. And that one falls right before the 2 double crochet on the previous row. So we're going to start the next 2 rows the exact same way. You're going to start with a chain of 3, 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to turn your work and you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch up to your first yarn marker, except for the stitch right before the yarn marker. You're going to make 2 double crochet into that stitch and then come back. So you can see how I made it to the stitch before my yarn marker. I'm going to make 2 double crochet into that stitch, just like I told you. Then I'm going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker. Then you're just going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch to the next yarn marker and then come back. Now I'm to my second yarn marker. I'm going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker. And then I'm going to make 2 double crochet into the next stitch. Now you should be working across the front of the dress. You're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch except for that last stitch before the next yarn marker. You're going to make 2 double crochet into that stitch. Alright, so I'm up to my third yarn marker. I have 1 stitch left before my third yarn marker. I'm going to make 2 double crochet in the stitch before, just like I showed you. Then I'm going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker. And then you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch to the next yarn marker. And then come back. You should be up to your 4th and final yarn marker. You're going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker. And then you're going to make 2 double crochet into the next stitch. Then make 1 double crochet into every stitch all the way to the end, and then come back. You should have completed 77 stitches on that round. Now you're going to go ahead and move your yarn markers up to the stitch above. That way it'll be easy for you to follow along. And this will be our last row before joining the armholes. And we're going to make this row the exact same way that we did the previous row. So make sure that all of your yarn markers are in place. Then you can go ahead and chain 3 and then turn your work. And we're going to repeat the same thing that we did on the previous row. You're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last stitch before the first yarn marker unworked, and then come back. Now I'm at the first yarn marker. I'm going to go ahead and make 2 double crochet in the stitch before the first yarn marker. Then I'm going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker, and you're going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch to the second yarn marker, and then come back. Now I made it to the second yarn marker. You're going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker, and then you're going to make 2 double crochet into the stitch after the yarn marker, and then you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch to the next yarn marker, except leave the last stitch before your next yarn marker unworked. You should be at the stitch right before the third yarn marker. You're going to make 2 double crochet into that stitch before the third yarn marker. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker, and make 1 double crochet into every stitch to your last yarn marker, and then come back. You should be at your last yarn marker. Go ahead and make a double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker, and then you're going to make 2 double crochet in the same stitch after the yarn marker. Then just 1 double crochet into every stitch all the way to the end, and then come back. You should have 81 stitches for that round. Go ahead and move your yarn markers up to the stitch above, and you should have yarn markers in stitch 14, 28, 54, and 68. And then you'll have 81 total. Then you're going to make your chain of 3 to move up to the next row. Then turn your work. You're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch to the first yarn marker, and then come back. You should have made it to your first armhole. Go ahead and make a double crochet into that first yarn marker for the first armhole. Then you're going to go ahead and make a chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So go ahead, make a chain of 11, and then you're going to fold your work so that the 2 yarn markers are going to be touching, and make sure you fold so that the right side is facing you. The wrong side will be touching, folded towards the inside. So I have the right side facing up, and I've put the 2 yarn markers so that they're touching. Then I'm going to make a double crochet into the opposite yarn marker for that armhole. So you're going to take your crochet hook, you're going to yarn over, you're going to go into that stitch with the yarn marker, you're going to bring up a loop. Then you're going to make sure that you can see all 3 loops. So pull back on that chain that you made so that the loops are showing on your hook, just like that. Then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and pull the yarn through 2 loops on the hook. You have 2 loops remaining. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through those last 2 loops. And you just made a double crochet into the opposite stitch, and you just formed an armhole. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch to the next yarn marker, and then come back. Now you should be up to your next yarn marker, and I'm going to make this next armhole with you again. You're going to make 1 double crochet into the stitch with the yarn marker. Then you're going to make a chain of 11, just like we did on the other side. After you have your chain of 11, you're going to fold the 2 pieces together so that you have the back on one side with the right side facing up, and then if you turn it over, you have the front side. Then we're going to make a double crochet. Uh-oh, I lost my chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so I still have my chain of 11. Then I'm going to make a double crochet into the opposite yarn marker. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go into the opposite stitch with the yarn marker, bring up a loop, and then I have 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, go through 2 loops remaining, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through those last 2. And I formed a double crochet into that opposite yarn marker, and I formed an armhole. Then you're just going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch back to the end, and then come back. Now for this last row, before we change colors, you're going to chain 3, turn your work. You're going to make 1 and 3, 1 double crochet in 3 stitches, and then make 2 double crochet. So this first chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So we're going to make 1 double crochet into the second stitch. One double crochet into the third stitch, and then 2 double crochet into the fourth stitch, and you're going to repeat this all the way around. 1 double crochet into 3 stitches, and then 2 double crochet into the fourth stitch. And you're going to do that all the way around to the opposite side. And you're going to count each stitch that you made through the armhole as 1 stitch as well. I'm just making sure that you're following along with the armhole. I'm making 1 double crochet into 3 stitches. And then 2 double crochet into the fourth stitch. So you're repeating that same pattern all the way around. This is how your work should look so far. You have an armhole on both sides, and then here's the one back panel. You have the front of the dress and then the other back panel. And before we change colors, I was going to change colors at this point, but I'm going to do one more row before changing colors. So go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then turn your work. And you're going to make 1 double crochet into 32 stitches, and then make 2 double crochet into the 33rd stitch. So here, this counts your first chain 3 as 1. Make 1 double crochet into the next stitch for your second, and you're going to make 1 double crochet into 32 stitches, and then 2 double crochet into the 33rd stitch, and then repeat. So now I have 1 stitch left, and if you were counting, you would have come up with 28 here instead of the 32, but you're going to go ahead and just add 2 double crochet into your last stitch. Even though you didn't go up to 32. So that should leave you with 98 stitches for that round. So we want to have 99 stitches for that round. So you're going to make 1 more double crochet joining the back panels. So you're going to go into the bottom stitch. After you yarn over, you're going to go into the bottom stitch of that first chain 3 that you made. You're going to bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through 2, and then yarn over and go through 2. And then that will join the 2 back panels together, and then you're going to slip stitch into the top stitch of that first chain 3 that you made. Just yarn over and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. And then you joined the 2 back panels together. Then you're going to finish off, just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And this is how your work should look so far. Now we're going to join our new color. You're going to take your crochet hook and you're just going to go right where you finished off, into the stitch right where you finished off, and join your new color. You're just going to make a chain of 1 and then tie a knot. Then you're going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to bury your loose yarn ends as you work. So in the next stitch over, and if you're looking closely at the panel, if you joined it in the right stitch, you have this first stitch on this side of the panel. You have this 1 stitch. You joined into the 2nd stitch, and now you're going to make a double crochet into the 3rd stitch. So yarn over, go into that 3rd stitch behind the loose yarn ends, bring up a loop, make your double crochet, and then this is what your work should look like so far. So you have the 1 stitch unworked, you joined into that 2nd stitch, and then you have a double crochet into the 3rd stitch. Then you're going to make 1 more double crochet into the next stitch. So you want 1 double crochet into 3 stitches. So this first chain 3 counts as 1. We made the second one and the third one. Then you're going to make 3 double crochet into the 4th stitch. And that's what your work looks like so far. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. And that's what your set is going to look like. So we can go ahead and cut the loose yarn ends. Then you're going to skip 2 stitches. I'm going to work one more set with you. Skip 2 stitches and then work 1 double crochet into 3 stitches. Then you're going to work 3 double crochet into the next stitch. And then 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. And then skip 2 stitches and repeat. So you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around, back to the beginning, and then come back. When you get to the other side and you finish your last set, you have 2 stitches left before you get back to your initial chain 3. You're going to skip those 2 stitches and you're going to make a slip stitch into the top stitch of that first chain 3 that you made. So you're going to go into that top stitch of that first chain 3. You're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch, and then you're going to finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then this is what your work looks like so far. Then you're going to join your next color, but this time you're not going to join where you finished off. You're going to skip that stitch and join into the next stitch over. So don't join in the stitch that you finished off with. You're going to join with the next stitch over. And then you're going to chain 1 and then tie a knot. And you can use that loose yarn end that you finished off with to tie your knot. And then we're going to bury our loose yarn ends as we crochet. You're going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into the next. This first chain 3 counts as 1. So you're going to crochet your second one into the second stitch, third stitch. So this one counts as 1. You're going to make 1 double crochet into the second stitch, 1 double crochet into the third stitch. I'm going behind my loose yarn ends as I crochet. And then that brings you to the middle stitch of that previous row's 3 double crochet into the same stitch. You're going to make 3 double crochet into that stitch. Then you're going to make 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. And then you can go ahead and cut your loose yarn ends. And that's going to be your set all the way around. So you're going to skip the next 2 stitches and repeat. 1 double crochet into 3 stitches. Three double crochets into the next stitch. And then 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. And then you're going to skip 2 stitches and repeat. Your gaps should be lining up right above each other when you do that. And this is what your work. Now every row after that is going to be worked the same way. And I just want to show you how many rows that I finished. So starting with the first row is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can make your dress as short or as long as you like, but that's how long I made my dress. When you finish your last row, just take your tapestry needle and put the loose yarn end onto your tapestry needle. I'm just going to show you how to bury the loose yarn ends. You just take your tapestry needle and weave it in the dress. And I usually weave it in a couple of times and just bury it into the inside of the dress. And then you just cut your loose yarn end. Now I'm going to show you how to make the button holes for the back as well as the trim for the top of the dress. On the back of the dress, I'm going to start where I have my loose yarn end. If you've already buried it, it's going to be on, here's the back of the dress, it's going to be on the left side. I have the right side facing towards me. I'm just going to take my crochet hook and go right through that stitch where I have my loose yarn end. And then you're going to take the yarn color that you want for your trim. I'm going to use purple for mine, a pastel purple, light purple. Then I'm going to hook that new color, bring up a loop. I'm going to chain 1 and then just tie a knot. Then you're going to take your loose yarn ends because we're going to bury them as we work. And you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over. So take your crochet hook, go into the next stitch over, go behind your loose yarn ends, bring up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through both for a single crochet. You're going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch around the neck of the dress until you get to the opposite side and then come back. So 1 single crochet into every stitch around the neck of the dress. You should have finished the beautiful purple trim around the neck of the dress. And we started on this side and now we're on the opposite side. This is the side where we're going to put the buttons. So the buttonholes are going to go on the opposite side where we started. Now we're going to start working along the side where the buttons are going to go. The only thing about working along the side here is that we're working along the sides of the double crochet. So here you have a double crochet from the previous row. It's along the side, same as this one and this one. So I'm going to show you how to make your stitches along those sides. You're going to take your crochet hook and you're going to go into the gap beneath that double crochet. So you can see how I'm going right in that gap, right beneath that double crochet. Bring up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through both for a single crochet. We're going to put 2 single crochet into that space. Then you're going to go to the next gap and you're going to make 2 single crochet into that gap. And you're going to do that all the way down. Just go into the gaps and make 2 single crochet into each gap all the way down. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to curve down and go all the way up to where we started, doing the same thing. 2 single crochet into each of the gaps all the way down and up around. This is how your work should look so far. Then we're going to take and make a single crochet right at the top, that top stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made. Just yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on your hook for a slip stitch. Then you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. After you turn your work, you'll see that we're going to be working down the back side of the dress. This is where the buttons are going to go. So we're going to make the buttonholes now on the opposite side. In the first stitch, we're going to make 2 single crochet into that first stitch. Then we're going to chain 2 for the first buttonhole. 1, 2. You're going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and make a single crochet into the third stitch. And that creates your first buttonhole. So whatever size button that you have, you want to make sure that your button will fit through. Not kind of snug, but not too loose. So if you need a smaller one, then you wouldn't do a chain 2, you would do a chain 1 and skip 1. So this is where you would size your button and make sure that it fits through the buttonhole. Then you're going to make a single crochet down to where your second buttonhole is going to be, and then make your second buttonhole the same way. For mine, I have a total of 1 single crochet and 6 stitches. And then I chain 2 for my second buttonhole, skip 2 stitches, and then I make 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. Then I chain 1 and turn my work to go back up where I just made the buttonholes. Now I'm going to work back up where I just made my 2 buttonholes. So I'm going to make a single crochet into the next stitch before my first buttonhole. Then I'm going to go into the buttonhole gap, make 2 single crochet into that gap, and that just strengthens the buttonhole that I just made. Then I'm going to make a single crochet into every stitch up to my next buttonhole. And then I'm going to put 2 single crochet into that buttonhole gap. Then I'm going to make a single crochet into the top stitch on the neck, and then I'm going to slip stitch to the next stitch over. So just go into the next stitch over on the neck, yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And now you have the back of the dress. You can bury your loose yarn end, and then you have your buttonholes. And now we're going to sew on our buttons. Now you can sew your buttons on with the sewing needle and thread if you want, but if you're going to sew your button on with yarn and a tapestry needle, make sure you have the size tapestry needle that will fit through the buttonholes. I'm going to use my pink yarn. You just take your hook and go through the eye of your tapestry needle. Then you're going to hook your yarn and bring the hook back through the eye of the tapestry needle. And the best way I've found to bring the yarn through the eye of the needle is to move your hook up and down, and it just comes through easily. Now just sew your buttons on. Make sure that when you sew them on, that they're right near your buttonholes. And then you have the buttons for your dress. For the purple trim around the armholes, I still have the right side facing towards me, and I'm just going to start right at the armpit, put my crochet hook through any of the stitches. I'm going to bring up a loop with my purple color, or whatever color you're using for the trim. You can use the same color as you used for the neck, or just have fun with the colors. Then you're just going to chain 1, tie a knot, then I'm going to carry my loose yarn end, and I'm going to make a single crochet into every stitch all the way around, the same way that you did for the neck. And then you just slip stitch to the first stitch that you made and finish off, and just do that for both armholes, and then come back. This is how the trim looks around my armhole, and then I did the same thing on the other side. Now I'm just going to show you how to make the little flowers if you want the little flowers on your dress. To make the flower, we're going to start with a magic circle. Just take whatever color yarn that you want to make your flower with and just drape it across your 4 fingers. Use your thumb to stabilize. Then wrap the yarn around your 2 middle fingers. And then hold it in place with your pinky and your thumb. So go ahead and hold your yarn just like this. Then take your crochet hook, go under those 2 loops around the middle fingers. You're going to take and bring up a loop. You have a loop now that you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through for a slip knot. Then you're going to make 6 single crochet into the magic circle. So you take your crochet hook, go into the magic circle, bring up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through both for a single crochet. And you're going to make 6 single crochet into the magic circle. Then you're going to take your forefinger and your thumb, and you're going to hold the base of those 6 single crochet. Then you have those 2 loops on the opposite side. You're going to pull on one of them. If it doesn't close, let go and pull on the other one, but this one's closing. So just gently close it. You can always close it more later, but close it as much as you can without pulling it too hard. Then take your loose yarn end and pull on that. And just gently, because you can close it more later. Then take and turn your work. We're going to put a slip stitch into that first stitch. So you take your crochet hook, go into that first stitch. Then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. Then this is where you can take and close the center of the magic circle more. Just take that loose yarn in on the back and just pull on it gently, and that will close up the magic circle nicely. Then you're going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over. Then you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then make a single crochet into the next stitch over. And you're just going to do this all the way around. 1, 2, 3. Then we're back to where we started. So you're still going to make one more chain of 3. And then we're going to make a slip stitch into that first stitch. So you go into that first stitch, you're going to yarn over and bring the yarn through both loops on your hook. Then you're going to finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to sew it onto your project. And then when I sew it onto the dress, I just take and sew only around the center, just a few stitches around the center. That way the petals will still be free. So on here you can see how the petals are free. I just sewed right around the center. And then I just clustered mine. You can place your flowers wherever you want and whatever colors that you want. And then that is your dress.